YMB movie talk from your movie blog. My name is Simon Maxwell, and I'm very happy you decided to join me today for my 11th episode of YMB Movie Talk. Now, it depends on where you're watching this, because I've recently just set up different places to listen to my podcast. You can find the podcast on Spotify now. All the episodes are up on SoundCloud, including this one will be up on SoundCloud as well. So yeah, now it's not just on YouTube. You can get it in audio versions now on Spodcast. Spodcast? I don't know what that is. I've never heard of Spodcast before, but that sounds quite cool. Yeah, you can get it now on Spotify or SoundCloud. So I'll put the links to those in the description of this video. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can find the links to Spotify and SoundCloud if you want to watch it on there. And also give me a follow on there as well, guys. That would be really appreciated. Right, we have a few topics to get into today. We go back to the normal format of YMB Movie Talk. Obviously, if you watched my video yesterday, it was more talking about one specific topic, getting into the Zack Snyder Justice League film. Obviously, my views were a little bit mixed on that, but my thoughts were definitely positive on that film. Like, without a doubt, I do like the Zack Snyder cut of Justice League, 100%. It's a good film, even though I did have a bit of a rant about some parts of it, but I did like it overall. And talking about Zack Snyder's Justice League, that leads us into the first topic that I want to talk about today, and it's been announced by Warner Brothers that they are not going to pursue continuing the Snyderverse. This is something we all presumed would happen. This is the thing. They have announced basically that they have no plans to continue the Snyderverse. They still want to carry on with their current trajectory of what they want to do with their individual films. They're not really interested in bringing Snyder back and trying to expand that world he built in a way, especially with Snyder in charge. So it's one of those, guys. It's a tough one, because this is the same company that told us we would never get a Snyder cut. So it's difficult to believe what they say. Do I believe that this is going to be a thing? Do I genuinely believe that we'll never see the continuation of Zack Snyder's his take on the DC universe? The answer to that question is very complex, because I think with the nature of the film we got on well, for me it would have been Now TV. For people in America it would have been HBO Max. But the nature of that film that we got, for me, there is something there. I feel like there's something there that if they wanted to do their own little separate thing on HBO Max, they probably could do. Do I think it will be the main continuation for this universe going forward? No. I don't think so. And I think the reason... See, I think the main reason for this is very complex, because I do think this is a series that has a lot of potential, especially now, especially after we saw Justice League. I think Justice League, for me, Zack Snyder's take on Justice League, if anything, one of the best parts of it for me was how it set up the future of this universe going forward. How it set up Flash and Cyborg and Aquaman, and set this kind of unity up between these characters, and how that could go on moving forward. But I think with the nature of this property, if you're a business, you're running a business, you're the head of Warner Brothers, you're looking at this as a business perspective. The DCEU films financially really have kind of underperformed. Now, I'm not saying they've done bad. I'm not saying they've done bad at all. I don't think they have done bad at all, the DCEU films. However, I will say some of them have definitely underperformed. Man of Steel, I think, was a good jumping off point for the series. You know, you could use the excuse that we were going off Superman Returns, and which wasn't really very loved by people, and then Man of Steel kind of come along, so it had that kind of burden on it. We hadn't had a good Superman film for what, like 30 years at that point. So it was definitely tough to kind of kick this series off with like a massive success, but I do see Man of Steel as a financial success. I will say that. I think with the expectation for it, I think with the way that character was saw in pop culture at the time, I definitely think that they succeeded there. Now, the only problem is going forward is that I think this series of films should have been aiming higher box office wise than they did in the end. So we're looking at films like Suicide Squad. We're looking at films like Batman vs Superman. We're looking at films like Justice League. Like these films that had this Zack Snyder tone to them. Even Suicide Squad. Like if you watch Suicide Squad, it feels like it's in that Snyder kind of style. This very dark, dreary, gloomy kind of style. Those films really underperformed, in my opinion. Like Batman vs Superman didn't even crack $1 billion. How has that happened? Like, how has Black Panther and Captain Marvel and all these? How has that been able to crack $1 billion and Batman vs Superman didn't? So I think that is where WB will be looking at this, looking at the returns from the original cut of Justice League, looking at the returns of Batman vs Superman, and probably asking themselves, you know what, let's probably stick in this different direction, because since they've changed their direction, I mean, it has to be said they've been a lot more successful than they were before. Like it's just a fact. Like it can't be denied. Some films haven't performed as well as they probably should do. Birds of Prey, I don't think performed anywhere near as well as they was expecting. I don't think Shazam was like a huge success, even though people liked it. And I was one of those people. It wasn't a huge financial success, but the Wonder Woman films have been very successful. Aquaman was very successful. Obviously, we have the James Gunn Suicide Squad film coming, which looks fantastic. Joker was a huge success. We've got Robert Pattinson's Batman film coming in a few years. So we have these different films now that are kind of going on their own path, and I think they are going for a completely different tone to what Snyder set up, and they're going away from like a different story than what he was going for. Especially with this Snyder cut now, and more we've seen more from that world. You can very clearly see that they was going for a different. They've gone for a different tone, a different way of approaching their films since Snyder was like kind of leading this. So I think from a business perspective, WB will be looking at this and thinking, yes, we've had all these really good, good reactions towards Zack Snyder's Justice League. But if you're looking at history, his DCEU films have flopped when it comes to the box office. They've not really performed as well as they probably want them to. And I think giving it to someone who is like a David F. Sandberg, or someone, or even a Patty Jenkins. Yes, Wonder Woman 84 was awful, but like a lot of people like Wonder Woman, and I did think she did good with that first film. Even though I can't stand Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman, one of the best things about that film was the direction and the story and the pacing and the end. That was good, and I think Patty Jenkins could do a decent like Justice League kind of film there, and I think she could be a good person to kind of carry this universe going forward. Or a David F. Sandberg, someone who is a little bit more not as kind of safe, as someone who's a little bit more adventurous with their directing, and then someone's a bit more fresher and newer. Even James Wan, if they wanted to bring James Wan back and kind of have him guide this ship as far as like their creative like force, that could work. I just don't see the financial gain for WB continuing the Snyderverse, especially in cinemas, maybe on streaming services. Like I said, I did mention this earlier. If they wanted to kind of continue the Snyderverse on HBO Max in a similar way that they did the Snyder Cut, maybe that could work. maybe as like an Elseworld kind of separate from the main films that WB will be producing and will be releasing in cinemas. If they wanted to do that like their own kind of thing, then possibly maybe that could work. But I think for the main WB line of films, I think the Snyderverse is kind of done now. And continuing on from that, it's been rumoured and been clamouring for quite a while actually, and that is a David Ayer cut of Suicide Squad. Now, this is very interesting. This is something I've wanted to talk about for years, guys, because I remember when they released that first trailer of Suicide Squad, it was that that song that was like, I started a joke, which started that one, that really creepy, unnerving trailer. And you saw the Joker at the end, and he's like about to like electrocute Harley Quinn, and it's this really like eerie, dark tone. And I remember that trailer and thinking, this film actually looks really good. Like, I'm not a huge David Ayer fan. Like, let me just say that from the off. I'm not a massive David Ayer fan. I don't think he's a very good director at all. But when it's similar to Snyder in a way that when he does hit, he hits. Like, he hit with Training Day for sure. But if you look since then, like, I remember that film he did with Arnold Schwarzenegger, that Sabotage, which was just not great. It has to be said it wasn't great. But he did films like Fury. I think he did Fury with Brad Pitt, which was a decent film. So he has it in his locker. And I think he had something there with Suicide Squad. So similar to the way I think about Suicide Squad, a lot of other people have been kind of clamouring for a David Ayer kind of director's supercut to be released on HBO Max in a similar style to what Justice League was. Obviously, Suicide Squad was a film that was changed so much during production, as far as the original cut was kind of dark, had this very serious tone. They had the reaction from Batman versus Superman, and at the time, Suicide Squad was already kind of shot. So, and I don't think they did reshoots for Suicide Squad either. So it was already shot, it was already done. And then we had that second trailer, which for me was it was such a different tone from that original first trailer. You could see their reaction. Like, they was panicking after Batman versus Superman. 100%. Like, they was definitely panicking after the reaction of that film. That film, that one of the main criticisms was it was too dark. You know, it needed more humour. It took itself too seriously. So they took a film that was very serious in tone and tried to make this Guardians of the Galaxy weird kind of humorous comedic film out of a film that wasn't that. Like, it's very strange. David Ayer's Suicide Squad. It's a weird thing. I hate Suicide Squad, by the way. I hate it. For me, it's the worst. It's the worst DCEU film by a mile. It's so bad. It's worse than Batman vs Superman. Worse than Whedon's Justice League. It's a complete mess. It's so you can tell when you're watching it. Like, it's such a tonally inconsistent film. You'll have scenes that are very serious, and then you'll have like all these weirdly edited scenes that just don't fit. Like, I still don't understand why Joker was in that. If I mean, it was always said that there was enough footage there to almost make a Joker and Harley Quinn film, because there was that much footage, and Joker was in it for 5 minutes in the final cut. There was no need for him to be there, and Jared Leto's performance was just shocking. I mean, it was the worst Joker ever. In my opinion, he was just terrible. He was really bad in that film. Whether that was through direction or whether that was through his interpretation of the character, it was terrible. The look of the character, the way he spoke, the way he acted, it was just terrible. And he didn't need to be in that film. So with all the behind the scenes problems that the Ayer cut that David Ayer had with his cut of Justice League, they basically turned a very serious film into an over-the-top, weirdly edited film, and I'm sure it was edited. The final cut of the film was edited by the company that cut the trailer together. Whoa, that's better. Sorry, I just had a massive sneeze. Oh god, that was better. I think Suicide Squad's making me ill. Oh dear. Right, where was I? Yeah, okay, Suicide Squad. Yeah, it was just very tonally inconsistent, and I remember kind of going back to what I was talking about before I had my sneezing fit. Um, the the final edit of Suicide Squad. This is how much of a terrible production this was, and how the studio just completely fucked over David Ayer with this. The studio that cut that Queen Bohemian Rhapsody trailer for Suicide Squad, they basically WB gave the film to that company who cut the trailer together, and they then did the final cut of Suicide Squad. So when you're watching Suicide Squad and you almost feel like you're watching like a trailer, especially in that first act. That first act of Suicide Squad is, oh, it's garbage, man. It's so bad. It's this weird, you get all these weird kind of neon graphics. Scenes just don't mesh well together. They cut between with scenes that don't match at all, as far as the story and the tone. They're edited together so strangely, and it doesn't work at all. It just does not work. So I kind of feel sorry for David Ayer in that sense. David Ayer definitely got the short straw when it comes to Suicide Squad. And a lot of people, including myself, have always wondered, what would it be like if the studio didn't interfere with David Ayer? What would a David Ayer cut of Suicide Squad be? You know, what would this film be like? Would it be this kind of dark, sinister kind of film that I was expecting in a way? And I always thought that we'd get that. However, it doesn't look like we are going to get that film. WB have kind of chucked that to one side, said that's not going to happen. Even though I think David Ayer has been very supportive of that to happen, I don't think that will happen. I think Justice League was such an anomaly in that sense. We've never seen anything like that before. We've seen director's cuts of films before, but as far as like taking a film and finishing it and taking a film and expanding it to the amount that Justice League eventually became, I don't think we'll ever see anything like that again for a long time, for a very long time. Like, and I think the one film in the DCEU that could follow that similar trend could have been Suicide Squad, because it was just, you could tell it was such a different film from what I originally wanted, that something needed to be done. Like the music choices, the editing, it was just terrible, and it didn't fit what I wanted. You could clearly see that. So it doesn't look like we're going to get the Ayer cut. It seems like Zack Snyder's time in the DCEU probably is over as far as the Warner Brothers main line of films go. But I think there is still a little bit of hope. I'm not saying this is 100% definitely done. I won't say that. If I had to bet money, I wouldn't bet money on it. I don't think this is done 100%. I do think there's a possibility there that we will see Zack Snyder return to the DCEU again. I do think that'll happen. Whether it be through a HBO Max continuation of his story from Justice League, or whether it's through another source, I do think we'll see him back again. And I hope we do, because Justice League did set up a lot. They set up a lot in that film, and I do think there is a lot of places they can go with that film. As far as the Ayer cut goes of Suicide Squad, I don't think that's ever going to happen. I'd love that to happen. I really would, because I do think there's a good film in there somewhere, but I just don't think we're going to get it, guys. And it's just a shame, really, because I think things could have been different for Ayer when it comes to that film. But I guess we'll never find out, unless WB change their mind, which is very possible, because look what's happened with the Snyder Cut. So we'll never know what's going to happen with that, but fingers crossed. Let's see. Time will tell, I guess. It's one of those situations. Time will tell. We'll have to see how that goes. Okay, guys, getting on to the second topic today. And this is another review, similar to what I did with Justice League yesterday, but I'm going to try and not do it as long. I think like my review of Justice League was like almost an hour, so I don't want to do it that long. It's just going to be a quick kind of recap review, little discussion, giving my thoughts on the Disney Plus series WandaVision. One of my most anticipated properties from Marvel in a very long time, probably since Endgame. Very, very highly anticipated. when it was announced, I wasn't really that excited for it. To be honest, I just thought it was sounding like a weird concept. I think that the worst parts of the MCU films that featured the characters in was the Wanda and Vision relationship. I just felt it felt really forced. I didn't really feel like the actors had very good chemistry with each other. I don't think they had enough scenes together to really make that relationship believable. I kind of feel like it always slowed the films down when the film focused on their relationship. It never felt like it was genuine, and I didn't really feel the bond there between the characters. So when it was announced, and it was going to be this kind of like weird kind of throwback to like old TV series kind of style, it was just very bizarre. And I remember when the first trailer came out as well, I was like, this looks kind of weird, but not to the extent what I thought when it was first announced, because I had no interest. I had almost no interest when it was first announced. I thought it was going to be terrible. I thought it was going to be boring, and I didn't have high hopes for it. Well, they released the trailer, and then I started to get more into it. Then I started to get behind it a little bit more, because they released more about the story and kind of like the possibilities that are there with this story. It almost looked as if Wanda was going mad, even in the trailers. Like you could see in the trailers, it just looked so bizarre. It did look like this was something that Wanda was kind of building herself in her mind. My theory was that it was just all in her head. That was my theory. I thought it was all in her head, and she was like losing her mind type of thing. We didn't get that in the final series, but I'll get on to that later. For now, just going to give a kind of quick little recap of the actual series itself. Starting thoughts, I think the series is fantastic. I think it's a weird one, WandaVision, because it's so unique in the sense that every episode feels so different from each other. Like every episode, especially those first like 3 episodes, where we haven't been introduced yet to Shield or not Shield, Sword. We haven't been introduced to like Monica properly. We haven't been introduced to Darcy properly yet. This kind of episodic rip-off of TV series from like the 60s, the 70s, that for me was very bizarre, because obviously I'm only 24, so a lot of the references I probably didn't pick up, and I felt it was very weird, but I was interested, to say the least. I was very interested. I thought the style was very unique. I think they did replicate TV series from that time really well, even through the look of the lenses and the lighting and the staging, the effects. It felt very genuine and very of its time, which I thought was really, really like a very strong positive of the episodes. And I always felt like while I was watching, especially those first 3 episodes, I always felt there was this very awkward, tense undercurrent towards these episodes, which made it more engaging. I think without those moments, it would have been very boring. It would have been very boring. I think they needed to build suspense in there to make you question what you were seeing. Like, I think they needed to do that. That's one of the main things they did really well, is that in each episode, they just drop these little things, these little tiny breadcrumbs for you to follow, and just to make it a little bit more tense. And they slowly build over the episodes. But in that first one, the first episode, the scene at the dinner table with Mr. Hart, with the hearts, you know how the Mrs. Hart was kind of almost looked like she was being restrained in a way, like she was trying to hold back. She was trying to keep a smile on her face, but you could feel the kind of repression in her voice and her actions and in her face. It was really awkward. Like, it was really tense. And then you get the scene with Dolly at that like little tea party thing that they have, where they're talking about stuff. I can't really remember much from it, to be honest, but I remember that conversation, and then it kind of went towards Wanda and her having this discussion about Dolly saying, I know you, I know what you're doing. Wanda saying like, I don't mean no harm, and I don't, I don't know what you think you know, but you don't know what you're talking about, type of thing. And those little moments in each episode keep you engaged, and that's what keeps the show from being a slow, awkward bore. Because for a lot of it, it kind of is. Like, it is very. If you're not used to watching series like this, and you wasn't a fan of TV series from that era, I think a lot of it will be lost on an audience. I think a lot of, including me, to be honest. Like, when I was watching it, I was thinking, like, it's a bit weird that it's in black and white. It's a bit weird that they are framing this like it's a genuine TV series, like, from that era. It's very jarring, and I think it only becomes clearer as you get through the series. I think I watched the series from start to finish twice. So I watched it through its original run, from when each episode was being released. I watched it through its original run, and then I watched it again all the way through. Like, I binged it in like a day. And I feel that the first 3 episodes were better as we got along into the 4th, 5th, 6th episodes. That's when the kind of the connective tissue was there more. We learned more about what was going on. We learned more about Wanda and kind of the power that she actually has. We've not really seen it. It's always been kind of hinted towards that Wanda is this very, very powerful being. But we never really saw it in action properly until this series. Like, she literally has the power to take over, like, people's lives and make them feel like they are living a different life. That's scary, man. And that's one thing I think that WandaVision does really well. It sets Wanda up to be a very menacing villain. Like, if they wanted to, I know she's meant to be in the next Doctor Strange film. If they were going to go down the route of making Wanda the main vision of the main villain, there we go, the main I can't say it, man. The main villain of Doctor Strange, then that's something that I could see them doing, and I think this definitely sets that up really well. I think her character slowly, you see her kind of breaking down, you see her kind of struggling to hold it together. And obviously throughout this series, if you've been keeping up with the MCU at this point, you know that Vision is dead. But yet he's there. So you kind of have these questions in your head, like, what did she do to Vision? Did she, like, reanimate his dead body? What did she do? Like, and it's that kind of awkward, like, unanswered questions that permeate throughout the entire series. You don't really know what's going on until the end of the series, where things start to get wrapped up and you understand more. But throughout the first half of the series, a lot of it you don't really know what's going on, and it's very creepy. It's very unsettling. I remember that scene. I think it must have been in the 5th episode, maybe episode 5, episode 6, when Wanda's pregnant with the twins, and no, it's the one where she blasts Monica out of the hex. It's that scene where she's talking about Pietro and Ultron, and then she kind of clocks on then, because, like, how does she know about Ultron? So you see Wanda kind of switch. That was the first moment you really see Wanda switch and just lose it. And then you get the scene when Vision comes into their house, and it's the dead corpse Vision from the end of Infinity War, when Thanos pulls out the stone from his head. It's the dead corpse Vision, and it's so jarring. Like, I remember the first time I watched it, it really unsettled me, because I wasn't expecting it, and it's such a haunting sight of, like, this ghost corpse in a way, like, talking so calmly. And Paul Bettany's fantastic in this series, by the way. Paul Bettany's phenomenal in this series. He's so good. He's so funny. He's so charming. He plays this kind of damaged character who doesn't really know anything. He's very much our kind of eyes into this world, because he doesn't really know what's going on either until we get further along and further along. Then he starts to connect the dots himself. That's when Paul Bettany really shines in this series. And Paul Bettany's fantastic in most of the MCU films, but in this series he's really good, and he really gets to shine in this series. Elizabeth Olsen is phenomenal as well. This is her best turn as Wanda. She goes through so many different emotions in this series. She plays the stereotypes really well. She plays them very on the nose, and even the small actions, like the way she walks, the way she carries herself, the way she uses her hands and her facial expression. They're very, very playing on the stereotypes of the time periods that these series are set in. These episodes are set in, and I think it really works. She's really good in this role. She's so good. She's got such a grasp of this character now that she's really, really good in this role. And her and Bettany, even though I don't think they had much chemistry before this, they have such good chemistry in this series. Their chemistry is ridiculous in this series. You really get to care for those characters. You get to care about their relationship. I could never have imagined caring about Wanda and Vision. It's such a weird thing. When I'm watching Infinity War and they're in that Scottish village and they're talking about I just feel you, and I'm just like, oh, that's one of the cringiest lines ever. But even that line is given more context now through WandaVision. It's that scene where she goes to break, what we think is she's trying to break Vision out of the sword facility and take his body and bury him. And while she breaks in, she does that kind of red magic thing over where the Mind Stone was, to kind of feel his soul. And she's like, I don't feel you. And that, when she said that line, man, her delivery, the way, the pain in her face, that performance was unbelievable from Elizabeth Olsen. And that, again, it took one of the cheesiest lines, one of the most cringe-inducing lines from Infinity War, and made it one of the most emotional lines in all of the MCU. So it's one of them. It ties everything together really well. It's good callbacks in it throughout. It's got this really awkward, tense, suspicious kind of vibe throughout the entire series. You don't really know what's going on. It always keeps you surprised and always keeps you wanting more and guessing more. And I mean, the fan theories about WandaVision are well known by this point, where people keep thinking oh, the Mephisto and all this. I never got that vibe personally when I was watching the series, but Marvel don't help themselves. And Kevin Feige's a genius. He knew exactly how the fans would react to this series. He knew exactly how they would react. By the introduction of Evan Peters as Pietro was genius. I'm disappointed in a way, because I was one of the people that thought he was his character from the X-Men films. I genuinely thought that was what they were doing. I thought they was doing, because obviously with Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness coming, with Spider-Man Far From Home kind of not Far From Home. What's it called now? The Spider-Man 3. It's not Far From Home. I can't remember. No Way Home, is it? Spider-Man No Way Home? They're introducing this idea of the multiverse. So it's very clever from Feige, because it's a believable subplot that you would kind of expect. And it gets people excited. It gets people asking questions. It gets people, talking about this series, and it gets people excited for this series. And it's smart by Feige to do that. The fan theories thing is a topic for another day. And if you was one of the people that kind of followed a lot of people that did the fan theories, especially on YouTube, then this show probably would have disappointed a lot of people. at the climax, because I think a lot of people was expecting Doctor Strange to show up. A lot of people was expecting like Mephisto, and a lot of people was expecting Evan Peters to be the same character that he was in the X-Men films. A lot of people was expecting like Evan Peters, not Evan Peters, Aaron Taylor Johnson to come back as the original version of Quicksilver. There's so much theories that was going around about this show that the eventual conclusion can be underwhelming if you was expecting more. Thankfully for me, I wasn't one of those people. I was just kind of watching the show for what it was, each individual episode, and I got something good out of it. They definitely knew what they was doing on that point. So if you was one of the people that was disappointed in this series, I think it's more down to the culture around Marvel and the people that talk about it rather than the actual show itself. I think it's one of those kinds of situations, and I don't think Marvel definitely knew what they was doing. They definitely, with the casting of Evan Peters and Paul Bettany saying about, oh, there's an actor that I can't wait to work with, and then he just ends up being himself as like White Vision. There's like a lot of stuff like that, and they know what they're doing, man. Like, they're smart, they know how to get people talking, and it definitely worked. Oh, I've nearly forgot as well. Catherine Hahn is so good in this. She's so good in this series. She plays like the nosy neighbour character really well. But then as the series progresses and you learn more about her character, I'm not trying to spoil everything. Like, if you haven't watched this series, I'd definitely go and... I mean, I've talked about some spoilers, but there's a lot of things that I haven't covered because I just don't have time. Like, it's not an episode by episode recap, but I'm just trying to give like my my quick kind of view on this. And WandaVision it's a good start for the Disney Plus shows. Like, it's really good for that. Like, it's got a good villain in Catherine Hahn. She's a really good villain. The relationship between Wanda and Vision is fantastic. The performances are unbelievable. The story goes in twists and turns. It keeps you on the edge of your seat. You don't really know where things are going to go. It keeps you guessing. It keeps you asking questions. There's this very awkward undertone of tension throughout the entire series that keeps you engaged and keeps you on the edge of your seat and keeps you watching. And I'm very excited to see how this gets expanded on in the future MCU main films. Most notably Doctor Strange, because I know Elizabeth Olsen's in that. So I'm excited to see where it goes from there. And like I said earlier, I think this series, if anything, sets Wanda up to be a fantastic villain. If they wanted to go almost like a Dark Phoenix kind of route with her character, then they could. And I think it would turn out to be quite well, to be honest. I think it'd be very interesting to watch. Especially after WandaVision, and they've built her character up so much. There's a lot they can explore there if they really wanted to in the next Doctor Strange, but we'll have to see how that goes. But getting on to the third topic today, and the third topic that I want to talk about is talking about a bit of casting news. Now, going back to the DC thing, and this show isn't a Marvel DC show. I will talk about other things, but at the moment they're kind of the main bits of news coming out because of the hype from Justice League and with WandaVision, the series, and the Falcon Winter Soldier as well that's just come out. So there's a lot to talk about with these. But it won't just be about Marvel and DC stuff. There is more to talk about, trust me. But yeah, there's some casting news coming out from the DCEU, and that is Helen Mirren. She is cast as the main villain in the next Shazam film, Shazam Fury of the Gods, I think it's called. She's been cast as the main villain in that film. I think the character's name's like Hespera. I don't know nothing about this character, so I can't give you any kind of detail on the character itself. The most I know about it is that the character is the daughter of the Greek the god from Greek mythology called Atlas. This like conquering kind of like this conquering character. So there's not really much I know about the character, but that's really all I know. But as far as Helen Mirren being cast in the DCEU, I think this is fantastic. Like, it's always good to get good actors on board. And Helen Mirren, even though some of her choices in her career recently have been very up and down. She's always good in everything she's in. She's always good in everything she's in. And I think she's shown she can be a good villain. She can be very menacing. Like, you'd think, oh, she's like an old lady. She's not that many. She's got such a presence on screen that when you watch her, you can't look away. She's so intense, and she's got so much presence and power about her when she's speaking. She knows how to convey emotion. She knows how to draw you in and be scary and be a good villain. That I think she'll be really good in Shazam. I think she'll be really, really good. I mean, I was one of the people that was really expecting Black Adam to be the main villain in the next Shazam film. I think it's I mean, God me, The Rock's been, when was he cast as Black Adam? When was he cast? Like 2013? Like 2014 maybe? Like, it was definitely just after Man of Steel, surely. You know, he was definitely cast before. Yeah, he was. He's been cast for ages, and we've not seen him yet. Like, and I know The Rock is The Rock, but he's like nearly 50. So if they want to kind of get this going, they need to kind of start soon. But I really thought that would happen, and it still might happen. I mean, I think the film's supposed to be coming out next year or maybe the year after. So there's still a lot that can be done. We don't really know much about the film so far. So there's a lot to... Oh, God. Sorry, it's burnt. That's disgusting. I'm so sorry. There's still a lot that we don't know about the next Shazam film. So maybe Black Adam could be in it. But as far as Helen Mirren... Why can't I speak today? I don't know what's the matter with me, guys. I think it's still a little bit rusty. But as far as Helen Mirren being cast in Shazam, fantastic casting. It's always good to get good talent on board. And Helen Mirren's one of the best actresses around when she's on it. When she's on and when she's committed to a role, she's fantastic. She's one of the best actresses around. And I can't wait to see her as a villain in Shazam. I think that's going to be a very good, very interesting casting for sure, but very, very good casting at the same time. I'm excited to see where that goes in the future. Right, the last topic that we're going to be talking about today is a bit more of a personal topic. This is not like something that's in movie news necessarily, but I just wanted to give my opinion on something. And that is speaking about the Harry Potter series. Now, obviously, I've got to be careful here, I guess. J.K. Rowling, her views on trans people is disgusting. Like, it is what it is. Like, but you have to kind of... I'm trying to separate the art from the artist, if that makes sense. I think J.K. Rowling's a piece of shit for what she says about trans people. That's 100%. That's what it is. However, separating the art from the artist, Harry Potter for me is the greatest entertainment series ever. More than the MCU, more than Star Wars, more than the DC series, like anything. So it's hard for me to kind of not still enjoy the Harry Potter series. It's very hard for me to do that. So when I'm thinking about the future of the series, it's very conflicting for me because the artist is tainted a little bit for me, but I can still appreciate her work. And her work in the Harry Potter series, especially with the novels, the original series of books, I mean, for me, it's not the greatest literature ever as far as quality of book, but as far as being so important and a very important part of British culture, Harry Potter's right up there. Like, anyone who was born in, like, the late 90s and lived through the 2000s, like, Harry Potter was everywhere. You couldn't escape it. It was everywhere. Like, they had midnight releases for Harry Potter books, and they, like, the shops used to be crowded for them. So this is the kind of cultural impact they had. Obviously, the films were made as very loyal adaptations to the books, but they left a lot out. But they were still very loyal adaptations to the books and followed JK's vision very well. Then, obviously, the series ended in 2011 with Deathly Hallows Part 2. Still, for me, the greatest experience I've ever had in a cinema. Like, Endgame, very, very close. Endgame, very, very close. but still, Deathly Hallows Part 2 is the greatest experience I've ever had in the cinema. Like, it was just, if ever it gets re-released, I'm there. I think I went to watch it 2-3 years ago now when it got re-released at Odeon, at an Odeon near me, and I went to watch it, and it's still, I mean, I was nearly crying. It was amazing. It's such a good film to watch in cinemas, and I was crushed because the world was over. Then we got the announcement that was doing the Fantastic Beasts films, a series of films that are very loosely tied to the Harry Potter series. I see. This is the thing. I love the Harry Potter series. I have very mixed feelings when it comes to the Fantastic Beast films. I think the first one has its problems, but it's a solid film. I don't think it's great or anything. I think I'd put it on par with something like Chamber of Secrets or something like that. Like, it's not a great piece of cinema. It's not a great film, but it's a solid, entertaining watch, and it was a decent starting point for the Fantastic Beasts series. The second one was terrible. Crimes of Grindelwald was just awful. Just an overblown, like, poorly written, poorly edited film. And the worst part of that film was the writing. It just was. J.K. Rowling's not a good screenwriter. She's a good writer when it comes to books and literature, but she's not a very good screenwriter. So my feelings on the next Fantastic Beasts films moving forward are very, very quiet. Like, I'm quietly excited. Like, I'm saying this and then they'll release the trailer and I'll be over the moon. But right now, mixed feelings on the series moving forward. It's not really what I want to be seeing from this world. And what I do want to be seeing is more things moving forward. Prequels for me are good in a way. I'm not a massive fan of prequels though. I'm not a huge fan of prequels. There are exceptions. Like, X-Men First Class is fantastic. I love X-Men First Class. It's one of my favourite films ever, and that was a prequel. So it's not like I'm opposed to prequels. I just think sometimes the idea of a prequel, my biggest problem with prequels is that they lack tension. They lack tension because, you know, especially characters that show up in future films, and you know they survive. There's no tension there because you already know what's going on. Like, you already know that these characters will survive this. You already know that, like, you already know where these characters will end up. So it doesn't really have the same tension there. However, sequels are different because there is that tension there. And I always have felt that a sequel film to Deathly Hallows should happen. Not directly after Deathly Hallows. I think it should be something that's set years later, maybe when they're old, maybe after, like, the epilogue of Deathly Hallows, where they're at the train station and, you know, their kids are going up to Hogwarts. Now, there was the Cursed Child, and I know people will say the Cursed Child was there, that's canon. For me, it's not canon at all. It doesn't hold a candle to those original books. It's written a completely different way. Doesn't fit the series at all as far as tone, as far as the characters. It's not the same. They're not the same. So I don't class that really as official canon. And people keep saying, "Oh, I hope we get a Cursed Child film." Have you read the Cursed Child play? Have you seen the play? Have you read the screenplay for Cursed Child? It's awful. It's a terrible story. It's this weird... I've always said this, right, about the Harry Potter films. People say that these dumb fantasy action films. That's not what the Harry Potter films are. Harry Potter films and the books are mysteries disguised as fantasies. That's what they are. That's why the Harry Potter books and the Harry Potter series is so good. Because they're mysteries. They're mysteries. They're not fantasy. The fantasy aspect is the icing on the cake. It's the sauce on the ice cream. It's the cheese on the pizza. It's not the core of what it is. That's not what it is. It's not what it is. That's not what the Harry Potter series is. The Harry Potter series are mysteries. You look at each individual book and film. They're mysteries. That's the main course. That's the main aspect of what this series is. What's the first film, first book? I'll just say the first film because I more relate to the films than I do the books. So the first film, what's the main aspect of that film that starts the whole plot? It's what is the Philosopher's Stone. That's the main draw of the story. That's what starts the story. That's what brings the characters together. That's the whole basis of the film, is what's the Philosopher's Stone? What is that three-headed dog hiding underneath the trapdoor? What's up with, like, who's guarding the stuff? Like, it's a mystery. Same as Chamber of Secrets. What's down? Where's the Chamber of Secrets? What is the Chamber of Secrets? What's down in the what's killing these kids? Like, the third one, who's Sirius Black? What's the mystery behind Sirius Black? Like, the fourth film, the mysteries who put Harry's name in the Goblet of Fire. The mystery of why Harry's having these dreams, and his relationship to Voldemort. The Order of the Phoenix. What's the main story with the Order of the Phoenix? The main crux of that film is the mystery behind Harry's relationship with Voldemort. Why does he keep having these flashes? What's the mystery behind the connection between these characters? Why are they intrinsically linked like that? The Half-Blood Prince. What's the mystery behind Voldemort? Voldemort's backstory. What's that whole? Where's the mystery in that? Deathly Hallows. What's the mystery of the actual Deathly Hallows? What are the Deathly Hallows? What's their purpose? What was the whole mystery of Harry's involvement with Voldemort is continued again, and what Dumbledore was setting him up for. The mystery of Snape. Like, why Snape did what he did, and that gets unveiled. The main crux of these stories are not about the fantasy. It's not about the magic and the trolls and the castle and the wizardry, and that's not what it is. The main core of the stories are mysteries. Now, with The Cursed Child, which is why, getting back to my point, the main reason why I don't want The Cursed Child to be adapted into an official canon film for the film series, because it's not a mystery. There's no mystery there. There's no mystery. It feels like a different thing. It's this weird time travel film. It's this weird time travel film about a child who doesn't understand, this weird angsty pubescent child trying to find, like, his worth. That's what The Cursed Child is. There's no mystery in The Cursed Child. There's no mystery in The Cursed Child. And not just the fact that it's structured so differently than the original books and films. Not that it's structured so differently as well. The writing's awful. The story's different. They bring back Voldemort. They bring back Cedric Diggory from the grave. Like, they go back in time to save Cedric. Voldemort had a kid with Bellatrix. Like, apparently this was like, she gave birth just before the Battle of Hogwarts, even though when Harry went to Malfoy Manor and faced off with Bellatrix and the Snatchers and the Malfoys, she wasn't pregnant. So it doesn't make sense. If you're a Harry Potter fan and you connect the dots, it doesn't make any sense. The more you think about it, the more annoying it gets. This is why I don't want a sequel for the official film series to have anything to do with The Cursed Child. To have anything to do with it. I see that as like a weird fan thing. That's what it is. It's fan fiction. It's a Harry Potter fan fiction disguised as official canon. And it's not official canon. So my feeling is, will there ever be a Harry Potter sequel series? Or just a sequel film? It doesn't have to be a series. I think there will be a series, whether it be a trilogy or a series of films. I do think that will happen one day. Whether it be 10 years from now, 20 years from now, kind of similar to what happened with Star Wars, where, we had the Star Wars original series, and then, we had the prequel series 20 years later, 15 years later, 20 years later, and then, nearly 20 years after that, then we get the sequel series. I think it'll be a similar thing with the Harry Potter series. And I hope that's the case. I really want a Harry Potter sequels. I want it so bad. I think this world is so rich and so vast. There's still so much. Oh, my light just went. Yeah, there's still so much with these characters. There's so much to do with these characters, guys. Hang on, let me put my light back up. Eventually, there we go. Yeah, that's better. Right, okay, yeah. There's still so much to invest with these characters. There's still so much to know about these characters. There's a big story there waiting to be told. Whether it be, if they go and in Harry's relationship with his kids, just discover that, or maybe if we do focus on the kids and their kind of involvement in Hogwarts' future, and there's a lot to be told. There's a lot of story there. It doesn't have to just go back to the same thing again and redo Voldemort, redo what we already know, like play off nostalgia. It doesn't have to be that, but I do think there is a story there to be told. Whether it comes from J.K. Rowling, whether it comes from a separate screenwriter who comes with an idea to Warner Brothers and J.K. Rowling says, look, this is my idea for where I think these characters would be in 30 years' time after the end of the Deathly Hallows. I think there's a story there to be told, and I think one day we'll get it. I mean, just look at the fact that I think there's a TV series coming out on Amazon, maybe. They're doing like some Harry Potter, some spin-off things set in the world of Harry Potter. But even though I like the idea of that, I like the idea of expanding the world with more, making the world richer and bigger. It doesn't just have to focus on the Potters and focus on, the Weasleys and Hermione and Hogwarts. There's more to be told in that. It's a very rich and vast world there. So it doesn't have to exclusively be about Harry and Hermione and Ron again. But I do think there is a story there to be told, I think. And one day I think it will happen. I mean, let me know your thoughts on that. It's a very tough one because the Fantastic Beasts films have been kind of declining in quality and interest over time. But if you don't think, if they announce tomorrow, or WB in secretly dropped an announcement trailer announcing Harry Potter and the Dragon of the Tomb, like, I don't know. I don't know, guys. Just an idea, like, if they announce that, you can't tell me interest would not be over the moon. Like, people would be going crazy for that. Especially people from our generation, people who are between the ages of like 20 and 40, 30, 40, like those people are going to go crazy for that. Daniel Radcliffe's a fantastic actor, especially now. He's developed a lot over time. Emma Watson's turned into a very capable actress. Rupert Grint's always been a very talented actor. There's talent there. And yes, I know a lot of the original cast aren't with us now, over time. But there's still a lot of them left. I mean, if you wanted to bring back some old characters, they're there. And I think that, like I said, there's still a lot of this story to tell. And it's just a shame that we get these Fantastic Beasts films because it's not the story that I think I or a lot of other people want to see. And you can see that by the diminishing box office returns, by the fact that people just don't really seem to be interested. There's no kind of talk about the Fantastic Beasts films online, or really even discussions with people who really talks about the Fantastic Beasts films. Like, it's not really that popular. But this is Harry Potter. Like, this is at one point before the MCU. This was the most successful film franchise of all time. Like, it's a huge series. So I think there's definitely a lot to be told there. And I think if they announced it tomorrow, the world will go crazy for it. So fingers crossed within the next 10, 20 years, I do think a Harry Potter sequel will happen. But let me know your thoughts on that, guys. Do you think it will happen? Do you not think it will happen? Let me know in the comments if you're watching this on YouTube. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about that, and we'll have a little chat about that. But yeah, guys, that'll be it for today. Thank you very much for watching my episode of my podcast. I did say on the previous episode that I was going to try and do about one a week. I'm going to try and up that and do as much as I can, really. If I can do one a day, I'll do it. But you know, I'm not going to promise that. Like, I'll try and do as much as I can, but I can't promise it. So yeah, thanks for watching. If you want to hear more from my podcast, if you want to just hear it in audio form, you know, you can follow me on Spotify. You can go on Spotify now, like I said earlier in the show. We're all set up on Spotify now, so you can go over on Spotify. It's YMB Movie Talk Podcast. I'll put the link in the description down below. You can go down and check it out on Spotify. Go give me a follow and share it around. You can go on SoundCloud as well. All my episodes are up on SoundCloud now, including this one should be up there as well now. And also, if you'd wish to donate to the show to help me or support me, if you like the content that I'm doing, there is a PayPal link in my SoundCloud profile account. So if you want to go over there, and if you want to support the show, keep the show going, that would be a great way to do that, guys. Every little helps at the end of the day. I know times are tough. You don't have to. It's just there if you want to. I'm not going to pressure anyone. I'm not the type of person. I just do it because I like it. And, you know, if you guys want to support, then that's completely up to you. But yeah, guys, I'll see you very, very soon. I'm not going to put a date on it. I'm going to say probably in the next few days. But yeah, everyone take care, and I'll see you very, very soon.